I was 9 the first time my dad took me to a job site. Not a Saturday morning tag-along. I mean, hard hat, steel-toe boots, safety vest that hung down to my knees. He handed me a clipboard and said, "Don't just watch, pay attention." So I did. While other kids were learning fractions with worksheets, I was watching men pour concrete and yelling at each other about rebar placement. I wasn't playing Minecraft. I was standing in a half-dug basement, calculating the depth of footings. My old man, Glenn Brower, ran Brower & Sons Construction like it was a church. Rules were gospel, and the site was holy ground. There were no babysitters, no cartoons, just truck rides, two-way radios, and the smell of diesel. By the time I hit high school, I could walk onto a site and tell you which crew was behind schedule just by looking at their tools. In college, I studied civil engineering and graduated with honors. Got offers. Good ones too. Houston, Phoenix, places where money flowed fast and dirt never froze. But I turned them down and came home to Indianapolis. Why? Because of the name on the trucks, Brower & Sons. That was supposed to mean something. I didn't get a welcome back handshake, no cake, no morning meeting with a list of priorities. My first day, I walked into the trailer and found a folding table stacked with old inspection reports, a sticky note on top that just said, "Start here." 63 open permits and 0 instructions. So I got to work. For 11 years, I ran the back end, scheduling, bids, logistics. I digitized our filing system, rewrote our safety manuals, built the first real CRM we'd ever had, landed our first municipal contract, then another, tripled our operational efficiency. We went from handwritten quotes on carbon copy to full project dashboards with cost forecasting. People stopped calling me the son and started calling me the guy to ask. I didn't complain when Dad took credit, didn't flinch when he brushed me off in front of clients. I figured, he's old school, prideful. This is just his way, and maybe when he's ready to step back, he'll hand it off right. I thought I was earning my shot. I thought being the engine meant something. But being the engine doesn't matter when they decide to replace the whole damn vehicle. He didn't give me the company. He gave it to Ryan. My brother, who hadn't stepped foot in Indiana in over a decade, who hadn't shown up for Dad's triple bypass, who sent us Christmas cards from Spain and signed them Namaste. Ryan, with his shiny sunglasses and year-round tan, who hadn't laid a brick or filed a permit in his life. I gave everything I had to this company, and it turns out all I earned was a front row seat to watch someone else drive it off a cliff. I got the text from Mom on a Tuesday. Dinner at 6, important. Come hungry. Her texts are always short. But this one, something about it felt different. No emojis, no follow-up. Just 5 clipped words and a weight behind them I couldn't explain. I stared at the screen for a minute before shoving my phone in my pocket. I should have known. When I walked into the house, the smell hit me first. Pot roast. That was her guilt dish. Thick, heavy, slow-cooked, and always came out when something was about to go sideways. Ryan was already there, sitting at the dining table, relaxed, like he'd never left. Clean-shaven tan. One of those breezy linen shirts unbuttoned just enough to show off a beaded necklace that looked like it belonged at a meditation retreat. No socks, of course. His loafers were kicked off under the table like he lived there. He looked up and smiled, that same half-smirk he used when we were kids. Hey, buddy, like we were 10 and he hadn't vanished for 12 years. I didn't say anything at first, just nodded and pulled out a chair. Mom came bustling in from the kitchen with a dish of green beans, like she hadn't spent the last decade choosing to ignore the fact that Ryan never called, never visited, never showed up when Dad went under the knife, or when the city almost pulled our contractor license. "You boys sit," she chirped, like we were toddlers on Thanksgiving break. "Everything's hot." So, I played nice. I sat. I passed plates. I smiled when Ryan told us about his eco-housing startup in Spain, about working with a sustainable design firm in Sydney, about some yoga retreat he had done in Thailand that really reset his nervous system. I nodded when he talked about consulting for clients in Bali, and laughed when he mimicked a Spanish contractor who refused to use screws on principle. It was all very breezy, very on brand. I glanced at Dad. He was quiet, picking at his plate, watching Ryan like a man watching his own memories. Then came dessert. Chocolate cake. Another sign something was off. Mom never made cake for weeknight dinners. She set the slices down gently, as if they might trigger something. That's when Dad cleared his throat. The air shifted. "Starting next Monday," he said, wiping his hands with a napkin he didn't need. "Ryan's stepping in as Director of Vision and Growth." I didn't flinch, didn't speak, but I felt the ground crack under my feet. I looked at my father, the man who built job sites like they were temples, and waited for the punchline. None came. Ryan smiled like it was already old news. "Gonna bring some fresh perspective," he said, tapping his fork against his plate. "Bridge the old with the new. Big picture stuff." I stared at Dad. He didn't look at me when he said it. "We need a fresh face," he muttered. "A modern voice. Someone bold." I nodded slowly. Not because I agreed, but because if I didn't move, I might actually break the chair I was sitting in. Bold, that's what this was. Replacing the guy who worked weekends, managed contracts, and held this company upright during 2 recessions, with the one who spent his 30s perfecting his downward dog in hostels across Southeast Asia. I finished my cake. I thanked my mom. I stood up and said goodnight. And as I walked out the front door, I realized something. They weren't handing him a title. They were handing him my legacy. A week later, I asked for the master file on Keystone Heights. It was a simple request, just a quiet Tuesday morning in the office. I knocked on Dad's door, poked my head in, and said, "Hey, I need the Keystone package. Legal wants a site logistics update." He didn't even look up from his desk, just flipped a page and muttered, "All ready with legal, check the archive drive." That was strange. We never send out the only version, not for a job that size, not for a job that mattered. Keystone Heights wasn't just another subdivision. It was a multi-phase, multi-million-dollar residential contract, the kind of project you build your next decade around. It was ours because I chased it for 18 months, because I met with the zoning board every Tuesday for a year, because I fought like hell to win it. So when he said to check the archive, I did. Nothing. I searched by job number, by keyword, by folder path. I even checked the private exec docs folder that only 3 people in the company had access to. Still nothing. Not in the cloud, not on the local drive, not in the RAID backup server we paid extra to keep off-site. That wasn't just careless. That broke Dad's own rule, one he'd hammered into me since I was a teenager. Always keep one version in-house, one you can touch, one you can see. So, I went downstairs. The document room hadn't changed in 20 years. Same steel shelves, same beige paint, same faint smell of paper and humidity. I started combing through the old project logs, fingers trailing along dusty binders with handwritten spine labels. 2006 soil surveys, 2008 bids, 2011 water table reports. Then I saw it, a thin black folder wedged between binders. No label, no date. I pulled it out. Inside were just 3 pages, but they hit like a wrecking ball. Ownership transfer. 68% to Ryan, 20 to Dad, 12 to Mom. Nothing for me, nothing. I stared at the signatures. Dad's, Mom's, Ryan's, looking rushed and unfamiliar, like he barely read what he was signing. But mine, absent. Because I wasn't invited. This wasn't about a title anymore. This wasn't about roles or departments or who brought in what contract. They had sold it, the whole damn thing. Gave away the keys to the kingdom and left me standing outside. The folder trembled in my hands. Or maybe that was just me. I don't remember how long I stood there. Could have been 5 minutes. Could have been an hour. When I finally walked out, the office hallway looked exactly the same. Same light buzzing overhead, same coffee stains on the carpet, same hum from the plotter printer. Except everything had changed. I passed Marion, our office manager, at the copier. She glanced up. Her mouth opened, then closed. Then she said, almost under her breath, "I tried to tell him it wasn't right." I stopped. "What did you say?" She looked around, lowered her voice. "When they had the papers drafted, I told Glenn, I said, 'You can't do this to him, not like this.' But he wouldn't hear it." I blinked. "You knew?" "I didn't know everything," she said, voice shaking a little. "But I knew enough to know it wasn't fair." I nodded once, just once. Then I walked out, not in a rage, not in tears, just calm, empty, like a firefighter leaving a house he couldn't save, standing in the street, watching everything he built collapse under the weight of someone else's match. The only difference was, this time, the fire had my last name on it. 2 days later, Marion called me. Her voice was tight. "You need to see this." I didn't ask questions, just grabbed my keys and drove. I still had my old ID badge in my glove box, out of habit more than anything. I hadn't set foot inside Brower & Sons since I walked out of that document room. The badge still worked. Marion met me near the back stairwell. No greeting, no small talk. She just turned and walked. We passed the kitchen, the mezzanine, the safety board, still pinned with a photo of me under January site leader. Funny. She led me to conference room A, the one with mirrored glass and built-in projector. I stood just outside the door, watching from the side no one could see through. Ryan was in there, sleeves rolled, pointer in hand, pacing like some kind of tech CEO. A glowing pitch deck filled the wall behind him. The title slide read, "Keystone Heights, Future Ready. Housing. I didn't move. I didn't breathe because I already knew what was coming." The next slide popped up. A site overview, color-coded zones, phasing plan, utility sequencing. It was mine, down to the same shade of blue I'd picked to highlight mixed-density units. Then came the elevation mock-ups, the same ones I'd sketched out on my tablet during a red-eye flight to Tampa. The next slide mirrored my traffic flow analysis. Same language, same charts. Even the footnotes. It wasn't inspired by my work. It was my work. He hadn't changed a damn thing. Just slapped his name on the front and added a few buzzwords. Eco-synergy. Smart growth. Human-centric experience. He clicked to another slide. A bullet list. 5 points, neatly stacked. I'd written those bullets one night at the office. Half-eaten sandwich in one hand, keyboard under the other. He called it a vision forward. I called it theft. Marion glanced at me, whispering, "I tried to stop him. He said you weren't coming back, that it was all open now." "Are my files still time-stamped?" She nodded. "All of them. I checked before I called." I exhaled through my nose. Not anger, not even surprise anymore. Just cold calculation. He really thought I walked away empty. He forgot I built the damn map they're using. He forgot whose initials are buried in the metadata, whose spreadsheet formulas hold the whole phasing plan together, whose zoning notes got that parcel rezoned from mixed use to high density. I looked down at my phone, opened my email, drafted one line, subject, IP violation, Keystone Project. I typed it out with steady fingers, attached the original files, timestamps, comparisons, every CAD export, every dated revision, every email chain that proved the work was mine. Then I CC'd legal, then Dad, then Ryan, and then our biggest client, Martech Developers. Before I hit send, I paused, watched Ryan throw up a new slide on the screen, talking about phase-first sustainability, like it was a term he didn't just pull out of thin air. I hit send. The email was gone, but I wasn't. I waited 5 seconds, then 10, then I walked away. Marion followed me down the hallway, voice low. "What happens now?" I didn't turn around, just said, "Now we see if the house Ryan stole is strong enough to survive its own foundation cracking." I picked a neutral place, Calvin's Diner, the one on 16th with the chipped Formica booths and the jukebox that only plays Springsteen and early Fleetwood Mac. Dad used to take me there on Saturdays before site visits. Back when we still built things together, I got there early, picked the corner booth by the window, and ordered black coffee I didn't want. I laid the flash drive on the table like a piece of evidence. He showed up 12 minutes late. That part never changed. He walked in like he still owned the street. Slow steps, scanning the room like he expected someone to clap. The waitress waved at him. He didn't wave back. He slid into the booth across from me. Didn't say a word. I plugged the flash drive into my laptop, took a deep breath, opened the file, side by side, my original Keystone Heights plan and Ryan's shiny new pitch deck. Identical structure, same slide titles, same color palette, same phasing logic, same spreadsheet tabs, in the same order, with the same pivot table formulas I used to calculate contractor schedules. I didn't look at him, just zoomed in on the metadata, created by T. Brower. 7 months ago, then I turned the screen toward him. "This," I said, "is the plan I built. the one I stored in our secured archive until it went missing. He blinked. Just once. I slid the flash drive across the table. You've got 48 hours. Acknowledge it. Or I take it to Martech developers and the board. He exhaled through his nose, like a man tired of having to pretend. You walked out, he said flatly. I stared at him. Let the silence sit for a few seconds, then I said it. No, you pushed me. You just didn't expect me to land on my feet faster than you did. He finally looked up, and for the first time, I didn't see the hard-nosed, steel-boot foreman who used to bark orders across a foundation pour. I saw a man who realized he couldn't charm his way out of this. You're acting like we stabbed you in the back, he muttered. You did. He leaned back, arms folded, but his face betrayed him. That tiny twitch in the corner of his jaw, the slight shift in his posture. He wasn't in control anymore. He knew it. You really think this helps anyone? He asked. It helps the people who actually do the work, I said. It helps the crew who stayed when Ryan came in and turned the office into a TED Talk. It helps the company survive without turning into a glossy brochure with no foundation. His fingers tapped the table once, then stopped. I leaned in slightly. I'm not here to beg. I'm not asking for a seat. I'm offering terms. I pulled a folded sheet of paper from my jacket and laid it flat. 40% equity. Director of Operations. Keystone and future development fall under my authority. Ryan keeps marketing. That's it. He read it once, said nothing. I added, non-negotiable. He stared at me like he was trying to find the version of me who used to just nod along and work late. But that guy was gone. 48 hours, I said again. Then I stood. Enjoy the coffee. I left the flash drive and the contract on the table. Behind me, the bell above the diner door jingled, and I stepped into the sun. The sky was gray, the sidewalk wet, the smell of asphalt hanging in the air. It felt like a job site before the pour, stripped down, tense, waiting. But this time, I wasn't the one holding the rebar. They were, and I just handed them the blueprint. 2 days passed. No email, no text, no response. So, I hit send. It was just past noon on a Thursday. I opened my inbox, pulled up the draft labeled Keystone, IP breach, attached the evidence, time-stamped files, revision history, side-by-side deck comparisons, and added one line to the body. Project was developed without proper credit or permission. CC, Brower and Sons, Legal, CC, Ryan, CC, Glenn Brower, CC, Martech Developers, full board distribution. I hit send. Then I sat back and waited. By 3:30 p.m., Marion messaged me. Marion, Martech pulled out, effective immediately. Marion, Ryan's freaking out. Threw a chair at the whiteboard. Marion, your mom's trying to calm your dad down in the hall. Keystone wasn't just a big project. It was the project. The one that had Martech dangling a multi-year pipeline of government-backed housing contracts. It was going to be Brower and Sons' foothold into the future, our resume maker. The deal that proved we weren't just dirt and beams, we could innovate. Scale.compete. Without Keystone, the company looked fractured, unstable at the top, unprofessional at best, untrustworthy at worst. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. This wasn't a gotcha moment. I didn't get up and pump my fists. There was no celebration, no victory lap. I sat at my desk, looked out the window of my apartment, downtown Indy humming along below, and realized how quiet everything had become. The part of me that used to hold it all up finally let go. They didn't think I had the stones to torch the bridge, but I didn't torch it. I just stopped carrying them across it. I stopped fixing problems I didn't create, stopped patching holes I didn't punch, stopped protecting a last name that didn't protect me back. For years, I kept thinking, maybe next quarter, maybe next project, maybe the next time I hit a home run, they'll finally see me. But that day never came, and after a while, you stop asking to be seen. You start building your own road. Around 5 p.m., my phone rang. I didn't answer. It buzzed again, and again. Voicemail after voicemail. I let them pile up. By 6:15, Marion texted again. Marion, they're trying to figure out if they can do damage control. Glenn asked if I could call Martech and smooth it over. I told him no. Me, good. Marion, you okay? Me, better than I've been in years. Then I silenced my phone and went for a walk. No destination, no schedule. Just the sound of my own steps on the sidewalk and the realization that, for once, I wasn't holding up something that didn't want to stand on its own. Let them feel the collapse. I'd already started designing the rebuild. Less than 24 hours later, I got a text from Ryan. "Meet me, please. Just 10 minutes. Your choice of place." I stared at the message for a while before answering. Me. 8:01 a.m. Finn's Cafe. That place still had my first set of blueprints laminated under glass on the back wall. I hadn't been in years. I got there 10 minutes early, sat at the counter, nodded at the waitress, and ordered a black coffee. No cream, no sugar, just something bitter to match the morning. Ryan walked in right on time. No tan, no sunglasses, no breezy shirt. Just jeans, a wrinkled button-up, and eyes that looked like they hadn't closed all night. He slid into the booth across from me and didn't say a word for the first full minute. Finally, he spoke. "I didn't know what I was getting into," he said. "I thought I could handle it. I can't." He looked like he expected me to say something. Maybe nod, maybe throw him a bone. I just sipped my coffee. "You made it look easy," he added. "From the outside, the systems, the people, the files. It felt like it ran itself." "No," I said. "It ran because I did." He flinched, and for once, he didn't try to charm his way out of it. No smirk, no joke, just guilt. I pulled a single sheet of paper from my jacket and slid it across the table, typed, bullet pointed, clean, my terms, 40% equity, directorial seat, operational authority over all development contracts. Ryan keeps branding and marketing, but no access to project controls. All decisions on Keystone revert to my lead. He read through the list twice. His eyebrows rose at the second item, but he didn't argue. "That's," he said slowly, "steep." "So was stealing my work," I said. He looked down, folded the paper once, then again. Like a kid caught cheating on a test who finally realized he wasn't getting out of it. He didn't push back, didn't ask to renegotiate. He just nodded, slowly, quietly. I leaned back and said nothing. I'd said everything already. He looked around the cafe, let out a small breath. "I used to think you were just intense," he said, "like rigid, overly serious. But now, I get it." "I wasn't intense," I said. "I just gave a damn." He swallowed hard. "You're gonna make it work, aren't you?" "I already did," I said. He stood. I stayed seated. "Thanks for meeting me," he said. I didn't answer. He left. By the time the check came, I was already halfway through my second cup. I paid in cash and left a good tip. The waitress smiled like she could feel the weight that had just shifted. Later that night, his assistant emailed me directly. Subject, legal meeting, confirmed date. Friday, 10 a.m. Location, 242 North Delaware Street. Parties, Ryan Brower, Glenn Brower, Thomas Brower. Purpose, equity and operational agreement review. I stared at the screen for a long second. Not because I was nervous, but because, for the first time in weeks, I wasn't fighting uphill anymore. Ryan had blinked, and the house that burned me, it was starting to tilt my way. I walked into the law office at 9:58 a.m. No handshake, no eye contact. Just a worn leather folder tucked under my arm, and my lawyer, Denise, trailing close behind. She didn't say much. She didn't have to. Her presence alone said everything. The receptionist led us to conference room 3B. Glass walls, long table, coffee. Nobody drank. Ryan was already inside. He looked worse than he had at Finn's. Pale, hollow-eyed, hands clasped tightly in his lap, like he didn't trust them not to shake. No linen shirt, no cocky grin. Just quiet. Mom sat to his left. Her posture was straight, but her expression had gone somewhere between blank and ashamed, like she still hoped this would all resolve if she just stayed silent long enough. Dad was at the head of the table, red-eyed, sleeves rolled, forearms resting on the table like he was bracing himself against a storm that already hit. He didn't look at me when I walked in. Good. I pulled out the contract. 40% equity, cut from Dad's share, not Ryan's. Directorial seat, effective immediately. final authority over all development and project operations, starting with Keystone. Ryan could keep his vision title, but all site work and client dealings would run through me. I slid the documents to the lawyer at the head of the table. 3 copies, I said. Let's get to it. The room was silent except for the sound of papers turning and a pen clicking. Ryan signed first. No hesitation, no speech. Just a quick scribble on the line, like a kid signing a detention slip. Then he slid the pen to Dad. That took longer. He stared at the signature line like it was a grave marker. 30 full seconds of silence. The kind that makes your stomach ache if you're still holding on to anything. I wasn't. He finally picked up the pen and signed one line, one final flick of the wrist. Then he pushed the contract forward and leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on the ceiling. The lawyer stamped each set. 3 sharp thuds of the notary seal. Done. She slid my copy across the table. I took it, folded it, and tucked it back into my folder without looking down. I stood. It's done, I said, my voice even. I won't be sticking around for questions. No one moved, no one objected. Ryan didn't even lift his head. I looked at Mom. She blinked like she wanted to say something, but no words came. That was fine. I wasn't there for words. I turned to go. Before I reached the door, Dad finally spoke, voice low, rough. You were always the engine, he said. I didn't see it. I paused, then I walked out. Not because I needed his apology, not because it made anything better, but because, for the first time in my life, the contract in my hand meant more than his words ever did. Acknowledgement. In legal ink, that's what I came for. And I got it. 3 months. That's how long it took to gut the rot and pour a new foundation. The day after the ink dried, I walked into the main office at 7 a.m. Sharp. No speech, no press release. Just a clipboard, a punch list, and a new access code to the executive server. First thing I did, audit the entire project management system. Permits, digitized, bid tracking, automated, doc contractor logs, synced to real-time dashboards. No more Excel sheets floating around like ghosts. No more paper files shoved in drawers no one opened. If you couldn't find it in 2 clicks, it didn't exist. Second thing, killed unpaid labor. No more help out over the weekend expectations. No more just put in a few extra hours and we'll figure it out. From now on, every time card was tracked, every overtime hour approved, every crew member clocked in through a mobile app. I rolled out by the 2nd week. Then came the meetings. 30-minute stand-ups. Daily huddles by project. No more wandering monologues or war stories from the 80s. Just facts, roadblocks, and next steps. And the bonus structure, performance-based, tied to deadlines, safety audits, and cost containment. Subs noticed, crew leaders stepped up. People stopped clock watching and started owning their sites again. By the 2nd month, one of our longtime investors called me. I don't know what the hell you're doing in there, he said, but I want to double my position before someone else does. The crew noticed too. I didn't walk around barking orders or asking for praise. I walked job sites like I always had, with my boots on, clipboard under my arm, and a pencil behind my ear. That's when they started calling me boss again. Not sarcastic, not to fill the silence, but because they meant it. Back in the office, I framed a single page for the wall behind my desk. It wasn't a contract, not a blueprint, just my first hand-drawn project plan. Pencil on grid paper, bent corner, coffee ring in the top left. I made it when I was 17, pitching a new layout for our storage yard. Dad never used it. Told me it was too clean to be real. I looked at it now and realized he wasn't wrong. Back then, it was too clean, but I wasn't. Now I knew how to build a plan and get it dirty. And then, just before the end of that 3rd month, it came. An email. Subject: willing to reopen discussions. From Martech Developers. Body: we are open to re-engaging on Keystone Heights, on one condition, T. Brower leads. I didn't forward it to legal. I printed it, walked straight to the break room, tacked it to the corkboard above the coffee station. Didn't say a word. People gathered, read it, looked at each other, and then someone clapped. Not for ego, not for show. Just relief. Because we weren't drowning anymore. We weren't pretending. We were finally running like a company should. Later that afternoon, Marion knocked on my office door. She handed me an envelope. Plain, no label. I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. One of those old notebook pages with ragged spiral edges. A sketch. A child's drawing of a construction site. Stick figures, a square trailer, little piles labeled gravel and rebar. In shaky handwriting at the bottom, Tom's job site, age 9. Beneath it, scribbled in my father's handwriting, you were always the builder. I just never saw it. I read it once. Then I placed it next to the coffee-stained project plan on my wall, and I went back to work. I didn't cry when I read the note. I didn't call anyone, didn't sit with it under some warm light like a movie ending. I just placed it next to the coffee-stained draft. 2 documents, side by side, framed behind glass. One drawn by a 9-year-old with dreams too big for his handwriting. The other, the first plan I ever built that actually changed the direction of the company. They both hang on the wall now, the boy who dreamed and the man who built. People walk by them every day. New hires, foremen, even clients. They pause sometimes, read the caption under the sketch, trace their fingers along the smudge on the grid paper. But they don't ask questions. They don't ask who runs Brower & Sons. They already know. Not because of some sign on the door. Not because of the title on my email signature. But because when you walk through a building that's been poured right, that's been framed and leveled by someone who actually gave a damn, you feel it. You don't have to ask. We still carry the Brower name, but now it means something different. It doesn't stand for stubborn pride or bloodlines or who used to bark orders from a folding chair. It stands for process, precision, quiet leadership. It stands for the people who actually show up before sunrise, clipboard in hand, ready to pour. I didn't win by screaming. I didn't win by being louder or by matching chaos with chaos. I won by refusing to be erased, by showing up every day until the work spoke louder than the name at the top of the paychecks. And when Dad's old friends come through for visits, they still try to pull me aside. They ask if things feel different now, if the company still feels like his. I just smile, because no, it doesn't. It feels like ours, but it functions like mine. Last week I stood out on lot 17 of Keystone, final phase of the build, fresh sidewalk. Sod rolled out, that smell of wet lumber and morning concrete still hanging in the air. The last pour, I watched the crew smooth it out under the late summer sun. Not one of them looked confused or behind or under pressure. They were synced, sharp. I didn't say anything, just stood there with my arms crossed, watching the work happen without me having to hold every single string. And for the first time, I felt it. Not pride, not revenge, just quiet satisfaction. This wasn't about getting back at anyone. This wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. Because sometimes you don't rebuild the bridge, you build the road beside it, and then you pour it yourself.